Is Australia in a recession? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because we're going to talk about, two articles which are suggesting we're either on the brink of a recession or that we practically are in a recession. Now, we've spoken about this in the past. There's a definition of a recession, 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And some people are saying, no, it's not a recession. It'll be a depression. It'll be much worse. Now, a depression, it's kind of different. It's you could say it's a mega bad, super duper worse recession. Or one definition that I like is an extended period of below trend growth. So that's either negative or positive. If you take that argument, then our economy has been depressed on a per capita basis since 2008, everyone. It hasn't been going gangbusters. And while, we're talking GDP figures here, so the overall economy. So some sectors might be going gangbusters, going fantastic, able to afford to pay nice, fat, juicy dividends, like our iron ore industry, while others are completely struggling, like tourism or student accommodation. You'd hate to be in that game, wouldn't you? It's interesting. As an architect, our industry, in many ways, we are seen as the canary in the coal mine. We're the first one to feel it before the tradies, before everyone else. So, and there's been times when it's been busy or it's been quiet for us and everything else has been busy, or we've been flat out and everyone else has been dead. It's interesting. And every time there's a recession, the oldies, they tell me, that back then, 10,000 people left the profession, went and became cab drivers. These days, you do Ubering. At least it's a little bit more fun. So let's have a look at these 2 articles, everyone. Before we go through this, let's just jump and look at the actual definition. I'm just looking down here to find the button to press. What the definition of what a recession is. As I said, a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP in 2 successive quarters. And we had that, everyone. We had our first 2 quarters in GDP falling in 28 years. And you can see that there. Look how drastic that was. Even when we were quite concerned with what was happening here in Australia, we didn't have the same type of drastic fall as other parts of the world. We still look good. That's the difference. Australia still looked good. So let's have a look at this article. And this is from Yahoo Finance. And this one is written by Michael Heath, originally from Bloomberg. So Australia's economy may have shrunk slightly in the 3 months through June, setting up the bad optics of a technical recession when combined with the lockdown-induced contraction expected for the current quarter, according to Citigroup Inc. and AMP Capital Chief Investors Limited. So that means if we look at this, I'll bring up the GDP chart here. That means if we're going to get a decline in GDP because of the lockdowns. So if the previous quarter before that, we'll be back in recession, everyone. We will literally be in a double dip recession. And that's something we warned about. And here's the thing. Should we be worried? Should we be worried about a recession? Let's think about it. Let's get our steins of coffee and have a think. What happened during the last recession? And I'll give you time to think about that one while I'll have a big shot of coffee. What would our government do in a recession? We've got an election year coming up next year, potentially a double dip recession. What do you think they'll do? And let's maybe this will help. Home builder. We've got JobKeeper. We've got building approvals skyrocketing. You don't want unemployment creeping up when you're coming into an election. So, let's bring up another hint. What do you think the government will do? You'll have to see. They may start flooding the economy with more money, more stimulus, more incentives. Will we see a return of JobKeeper? So, while the economy performed pretty well in the second quarter, a fall in net exports is likely to be among the factors that drags gross domestic product negative. Citi's Josh Williamson and AMP's Shane Oliver said ahead of Wednesday's release. The range of GDP estimates in Bloomberg's survey runs from negative 0.1, forecast by the pair, up to more than 1%, an unusually wide divergence. Net exports are expected to outweigh all positive domestic growth drivers, including household consumption, government demand, business investment, and others, said Williamson, chief economist for Australia at Citi. The optics of such a result would be poor. Sydney is now in its 10th week of lockdown, and Melbourne and the national capital, Canberra, are also under stay-at-home orders as authorities struggle to contain an outbreak of the Delta variant of coronavirus. A second quarter slump would be a surprise, as the more likely avenue for recession was expected to be shutdowns extending into the fourth quarter for a negative second half of 2021. Australia posted consecutive quarterly GDP contractions in the first half of 2020 as COVID swept the global economy, ending an almost 3-decade stretch without a technical recession. Yes, I mean, we've had it good here. We've been really quite lucky and fortunate here in Australia. We've had 3 quarters, 3 recessions. 3 decades since the last recession. I mean, do you remember the last recession? There's a whole generation in the workforce that don't even have any memory of it. I was a kid. My father had a construction company. My mother had a mobile hair care business. So we were hit with the recession. Projects just started getting cancelled. No work was coming in. That was when they decided to move up from Victoria up to Queensland. So I guess I should be thankful for the recession Australia had to have, because it got me out of the clutches of Danistan. Although they do have this weird thing up here called rugby. They play the AFL differently. That was, for a young kid coming from Victoria, that was an adjustment. I didn't know. It was quite funny. Now, AFL rugby is everywhere, but still. Consumer spending, plant and equipment investment, and government spending are likely to have added to June quarter GDP growth, said Oliver, chief economist at AMP. But this looks likely to be just offset by a drop in or stagnation for housing investment and non-residential building, and significant distractions to growth from inventories and net exports, he said. The recession concept is less meaningful than usual in relation to lockdowns, as it's not a normal cyclical recession, and the economy should recover more quickly, Oliver said. Now, this is what people are hoping. This is what people are predicting. I think CBA are starting to become bearish on the economy and predicting that the bounce back after these lockdowns won't be as exciting. At least that's what's being shared around on Twitter. We'll have to see. But the optics would be bad. The news of another recession would not be good for confidence. Inventories data due at 11:30 a.m., and this is on Monday, and net exports are at the same time. So there we have it, everyone. Potential for Australia to be in a recession. And here's an opinion piece in the Sydney Morning Herald out, when is it, today, sent to me by a viewer. Senior economist Jessica Irvine, talking about, again, recession, the definition, but with all the fact that we have businesses closing. I think what she's alluding to here is that you're going to have, different parts of the economy are feeling it. Some people may be really copping it hard. Others, and this goes back to the two-speed economy we have here, guys. It goes back to the fact that there's such a difference in Australia with the two speeds. You're going to have some people that are experiencing the recession like others aren't. Much worse. And others who are actually making bank right now, who are doing really well. Maybe it's a difference in jobs. So what's the solution to all of this, everyone? Well, let me get on the Well, the solution is to wait it out. That's the thing. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You need to prepare, have a diversity of income streams so that you're not entirely dependent on one sector. For our business, it was actually quite a challenge to get a diversity of sectors, because what would happen is we were a small business and we'd be growing and we'd get this mining work. And then, of course, that would lead to more work and more work. And I wouldn't say no to it. I'd say it's no problem. Take it all on. And I'd end up having all these staff working for me, and 80% of my revenue coming from one sector. And you'd even, about 70% was coming from one client. That was terrifying. And it was really a fight to diversify, to get into other sectors in my own industry, because, I'm chasing retail work. What can I show them? Mining buildings. So that's the challenge. I mean, that would be the long-term solution to an individual and a business person. Try and diversify your streams of income and revenue so you can sustain a recession, because it's not going to be uniform. I think we'll definitely get a double-dipped recession. I think it's going to happen no matter what. I think a lot of people are experiencing it. I also suspect that the government will ramp up the fiscal stimulus again to counter it. There'll be new schemes and systems coming out. Just wait and see. Maybe we'll have 1% deposit mortgages, or maybe we'll have Mortgage Keeper. What do you reckon? What do you think? Remember, an election year is coming up. So let me know your thoughts on that one, guys. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Sign up for SelfWealth or Stake. Use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy a merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Birth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.